I want to offer my sincere thanks to the administration and, of course, the School of Education and Urban Studies for giving me the honor of speaking with you. I have two favorite times of the year. Of course, commencement. I love commencement so much, and I also enjoy the beginning of the school year. So thank you so much for allowing me to address you this morning. As we reflect on the theme, which is civility in higher education, an imperative for all stakeholders, I'd like to reflect on an old cliche many of us grew up with, and the title of my talk is Sticks and Stones and Other Comments on Civility. However, this phrase has been rewritten in the last few years. Sticks and stones can break my bones, but names sure do hurt. Whether you've been insulted, overlooked, or hurt, the hurt to your heart can be more devastating than a broken bone or a hangnail, and it'll stay with you a whole lot longer. I'm a bit of an old schooler, and I remember my first day of college. We were all crammed into this gym with no air conditioning, and the Dean of Students parades out and says, "Look to your left, look to your right. One of you won't be here." Remember that talk? When it comes to workplace bullying in higher education, unfortunately, if you look to your left and look to your right, 2 of 3 of you are facing workplace bullying in higher education, either as the primary target or as a bystander, somebody who's watching the event, both of which are detrimental to how you feel about an institution. And so you know where these findings come from. It's from my book, which is a study of 175 four-year institutions, which found out that 62% of respondents are affected by workplace bullying. That is 58% higher than the general population reported by NAMI and NAMI. And just so we have a working definition about what I mean by bullying. Bullying means harassing, offending, socially excluding someone, or negatively affecting someone's work task. The person confronted ends up in an inferior position. Also, workplace bullying, quite frankly, is based on a power differential. The person who's the bully has some power over the target. There's expert power. The person who has a great profile, wonderful grants, nationally renowned, what have you, and they use that expert power to control and manipulate others. There's personal power. The person who's been at the institution forever and a day, they know where the POs are, they know all the rumors, perhaps they're married to the right person, their kids play with the right kids, whatever it is, but they have power because of their personal status. Then, of course, there's the traditional form of power, which is organizational power. The person, the bully, is the boss or has some formal power over the target. And here are some of the bullying behaviors. And it's interesting, when I did my study, some people actually wrote back and said, wow, I can actually have a name for what's happening to me. Continually insulting the staff, diminishes staff accomplishments, excludes others, engages in yelling and cursing, steals the credit of your staff, assigning inappropriate tasks, giving impossible deadlines, punitive disciplinary actions, withholding information, discouraging initiatives of the employee, and my favorite, that minute-by-minute check of your time. We are knowledge workers. We are asked to create knowledge, not repeat it, not summarize it, but to create it. And if we're busy managing these kinds of behaviors, the brain alone is going to have a more difficult time creating that knowledge that can inform policy, help out the city of Baltimore, the other things that we as faculty really can have an impact on. And here are some other behaviors. Office gossip. Now, if it hurts you when you were 12, to be the kid on the outside that everybody's talking about, it hurts you at 32, 42, 62, 92. It still hurts. Cyberbullying, with the advancement of all this wonderful technology, also the advancement of sending out that flaming email or tweets and Twitters and all those other things that I haven't quite learned yet, but they can be used against the target. Nasty memos, the power of the poisonous pen can be a very hurtful strategy. And the silent treatment. Well, the silent treatment. Why would I want the bully to pay attention to me? We are knowledge workers. As I see, we have accreditation coming. We have a number of outside people coming to our campus. And we as knowledge workers need to know when are the visits. We need to know when the policies are changing. We need to know when the meetings are changed. And if the target is left out of those decisions or left out of that information, the target is left unbalanced and therefore part of a target of bullying. So who faces bullying? It's typically the person on the outside, whether because of your nationality, your background, your gender, your sexual orientation, your age. It could be simply because you dress differently or have that quirky personality. But the person who's bullied typically is the one who's on the outside or on the periphery, and the person who ends up feeling left out. So what's the result? Quite frankly, workplace bullying and incivility is truly a waste of time. You ever get that letter bomb in the mail? And I was giving this talk up in New York, and afterwards a woman approached me, PhD in psychology, brilliant scholar, had shared with me this story. She had just opened an email where a colleague of hers had berated her openly and had CC'd the entire department. She was fuming. Should she walk across the hall and curse him out? Should she ignore him? Should she go for a smoke? About 10 minutes after she opened the email, she was called into a meeting. And she sat in that meeting and spent the next 45 minutes strategizing, how do I respond to this embarrassment? Her distraction was so extreme that the chair of the meeting said, "Where are you? You're not here with us." That's one example and one email in 45 minutes. If you've ever received a nasty message, gotten into an argument with somebody, work or not, you know how distracted you are trying to recoup and gain that composure. In American higher education, we lose about 3.9 hours a week. And on a salary of roughly $60,000, that's 5 weeks a year that the target of bullying disengages from the organization, strategizing, getting allies, collecting themselves. Imagine what you could do with an extra 5 weeks of your life. And your physiology will tell you. Stress is a very difficult thing for the body to manage. People who are the targets of workplace bullying or even the bystanders experience more depression, anxiety, distracted, as I told you about our psychology PhD. They have more weight gain, spending more time with Haagen-Dazs, Ben & Jerry's, Popeyes, or weight loss, have truly lost interest in eating or taking care of themselves. And there are long-term effects. Stress is a killer. Heart disease goes up for folks who are facing workplace anxiety. Insomnia. You think, okay, you just didn't get a good night's sleep. But recuperative sleep is not just a nice thing, it is required by the body. Anybody who's had a concussion knows that sleep is what cures you, what heals your body. It helps you get better. And if you're not sleeping because of the stresses on your job, you are not able to re-knit those things in your body that need support during sleep. And then there's diabetes. How does diabetes become a part of this whole workplace bullying equation? Again, it's the physiology. Thousands of years ago, when mankind was out in the brush and we either had to fight or flee, you would either get a rock and get that adrenaline going and throw it at the dinosaur, or you missed, or you had to run from the dinosaur. And the way you can do that is because your body dumps this cortisol into your system. It's this extra sugar that gets you going to fight or flee. But imagine the monster as your boss. You can't deck him because that's assault. You can't flee because that's abandonment. But your body still is ready for the fight or flight response and has that cortisol in the system. And therefore all the other problems that come to you physiologically because you have all that extra sugar in your system. And what's the effect on your scholarship? A creative mind is typically a mind that's at ease. Sidney Finkelstein's book from 2009, Think again why good leaders make bad decisions. The brain that is overstimulated cannot make good decisions. Your brain is like any other muscle. It needs to rest. It needs to relax. It needs to reflect. It needs to be comfortable. Those who are the targets of workplace bullying or witness workplace bullying face more chronic fatigue, post-traumatic stress syndrome, even depression, as we had talked about before. So it's not just one of those personality conflicts, which is typically how workplace bullying is discussed. It really does interfere with your productivity, and especially for us as faculty. And let me say this, if you bully somebody, you better believe at least 5 other people know it. Because after the target gets chewed out, just as my psychology PhD person came to me and told me, you better believe she's probably told 3 other people. She's called her mama, she sent an email, she told her office mate. Everybody knows about the bad behavior. And it creates a hostile environment and a chilling environment. So when you're treating somebody else poorly, you better believe that everybody else is going to know about it as well. But let's talk about some of our other stakeholders. Let's talk about our students, because they're watching us. Several years ago, I was in my senior year, and I had a professor who was chairing my senior thesis, Dr. Donald Gibson. And he was tough. And I still think about him today as I named some of the articles I published. Some of that influence is still coming through. But at the opening of my senior year, my father died. I was very close to my dad. I was only 20. We didn't even see it coming. And when I returned back from the funeral, Dr. Gibson says, "I'm very sorry for your loss. I understand if you have to take some extra time." Now, of course, with the extra time, I still had to correct my comma splices. I still had to write grammatically correct. I was an English major at Rutgers University, and he was not having it if I created poor scholarship. But he was kind and firm and empathetic in understanding what I needed to get through my senior year. And I did finish with a Henry Rucker Scholar at Rutgers University. Interesting how time works itself out. Several years later, I was an instructor at Rutgers University. I was leading an honors program. One of my students comes to me in her senior year. Really nice young lady, very smart young lady, who had lost her brother to gun violence in Camden, New Jersey, her senior year. Now, I have an opportunity to show her how can she still grow through this tragedy. It does not mean compromising my academic excellence, just like it was not compromised for me. It did not mean just giving her a pass or giving her a grade. But it did mean being civil and understanding and empathetic. That young lady did graduate. She went on to Penn for her master's, and she's teaching now in New Jersey. But it's interesting how things go around. We as faculty, we have the power over our students. So think about it. When you're grading those papers late at night or early in the morning, are you wielding that red pen or those red track changes like a blunt instrument? Are you after them? Are you mad? Are you going to teach them something? Or are you going to take this as a moment to really work and teach your students? Because they will remember some 20, 30 plus years later. I still remember Dr. Gibson. And if we remember the president's remarks, that young lady, you still remembered her time at Morgan. And are we going to do the same things and provide those environments for our students? As faculty, do you model such wonderful behavior in front of your class? Are you pleasant and empathetic? And I'm not talking about compromising academic excellence. I'm talking about understanding where your students are at and moving them through. Are you supportive in office hours? Do you hold your office hours? Do you need to be more empathetic in your email? I will correct a student in a minute. I'm not having it in my classrooms, and I know a number of my colleagues have talked the same way. But our students look to us for guidance and support and structure and excellence. But we can still be nice doing it. You can be firm and civil. And as with office behaviors, because one of the things I found out in studying workplace bullying, if one person does it, then 2 people do it, then 4 people do it, then 8 people do it. The same thing happens in your classroom. If you let 1 student act out, then 2 will act out, then 4 will act out. And how do you control for this? Well, you set it up early. What is at stake? What is at stake is students will walk. They won't come to your class. They'll leave the major. They'll leave the school. Hurt students will vote with their feet. They will repeat the same hurts and anxieties. They remember the hurt, and they become disenfranchised alumni. Students give to their schools because they love the experience. They love the education. They love what's happened. And so all of you as faculty are creating future donors. And from time to time, I will have faculty come to me and say, I have students bullying me. And we do have some students who will just jump in your face. And you need to set the tone early. Some faculty talk about how they've been bullied. If you are firm, and it's not what you say, it's how you say it. The syllabus, as you all know, I'm preaching, is required. This point is your contract. And I have used that contract, depending on the population I'm working with, to tell you, you're not eating breakfast in my class, you're turning off the cell phone, I'm not going to have you drop the F-bomb, even if it's part of your vernacular outside of class. We're going to cut that right now. And if you want to address me about your grade, we're going to do it after class. Thank you. Set the tone early with your students. Don't take it, but don't let them pull you off your square either. And let's not forget the most powerful stakeholder, the administrative assistant. And when I was in administration, my assistant was the gatekeeper to my life. That person could let somebody in on me or block for me. That person is the front door to your department, your program, the front line for your students. This particular stakeholder is particularly important. So did you say thank you to them today? Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for putting up with my quirky idiosyncrasies. Thank you for fielding all 5 calls from my mother this afternoon. Because you know what? That same person is the person who's answering the phone when accreditation calls, when the president's office calls, when alumni call. I had a very dear friend in Boston, and when I was an administrator, she was an administrative assistant, and she used to complain, why is it you always say thanks on Administrative Assistant Day? And she would turn, if you could just imagine that facial expression. I said, why? It's a nice day. She's like, it's one day. What about the other 300 and some days a year when you talk poorly, slam your door, throw your coat, throw me this? I need to be treated nice every day, not just Administrative Assistant's Day. So you may say it's their job, but again, it's not what we do, it's how we do it. So as I'm wrapping up, we all have power, personal power, expert power, organizational power. How do you use your power? Do you use it to give a hand up, or do you use it to put people down? So let's set our own destiny. So if you look to your left, and you look to your right, have you been civil to 2 or 3 people around you? And you're one of them. Have you said please and thank you? Have you seen your colleagues struggling to open the door, and their hands are full? Do you open the door, or do you walk around the corner? You see somebody struggling, or they tripped on the quad, you stand back and watch, or you go help them out. We have an opportunity to treat each other nice every day, not just Administrative Assistant's Day or Christmas or whatever. Those are nice, but it's every day that really counts. And if by chance you find that you're the target, one of the things is I've spoken with several different schools about this, is that we do have a responsibility to self-advocate. You can kindly tell the person the first time, I needed more notice about X if possible. Do you realize when you made a comment about my hair or my clothes, that was a little out of bounds? It's not what you say, but how you say it. And one of the things a former colleague of mine said, we actually train each other how to deal with us. I know the best way to deal with me. And I have a responsibility to let you know, I need to know X, I prefer Y. You may not get what you want, but certainly assert yourself nicely. Because oftentimes a bully will pick on somebody who they think is a mark, and they will come after who they perceive to be the nicer person. So as I wrap up, I know from my studies workplace bullying is a particularly complex issue. It will not be solved in 15 to 17 minutes of comments. But one thing I will ask, it all starts with you individually. by choosing civility all the time, not just when it's convenient or politically correct, but choosing it all the time. It's for the betterment of your colleagues. It's for the betterment of your students. It's for the betterment of your scholarship. And it's for the betterment of your well-being. I would certainly like to thank everybody for being here and giving me the honor of speaking with you, and wishing everybody a very prosperous 2015-2016 academic year. Thank you very much.